Hello everyone, I'm Verna Vazquez. I hope you're doing well in the part of the world where you are. Today I will present to you the findings of the project, The Interactive Role of Music as a Facilitator for Mother-Infant Bonding in Early Motherhood. A general overview of this presentation includes the general background, the research questions and aims, along with the research design, followed by the project's methodology, analysis and results, and closing up with the general conclusions, discussion, impact, and future research. Let's start with the background. We will talk about two main topics: maternal bonding and its importance for the early experiences of infants, and research about music, mothers, and infants. Every time we talk about mothers and babies, we always highlight and picture all the happy moments and those happy faces. However, how many times have you seen something like this or someone like this? Motherhood, even if we want to keep it as one of the most rewarding moments in women's life, not for everyone and not all the time is like this. Motherhood has been considered one of the most stressful roles that women have to fulfill. Especially the early stages of motherhood can be challenging for women. Changing their routine and their adaptation into different roles, like partner, sister, friend, daughter, can compromise the adaptation of their new role as mothers, and therefore it can compromise the attachment development with their infant. As humans, we have the ability to bond with other people, but as John Bowlby suggests, the mother-infant attachment and maternal bonding is the first bond that individuals develop through mother-infant interactions. As founder of the attachment theory, Bowlby concluded that maternal bonding is a consistent proximity and care over time that gives the basis of a secure attachment between mothers and babies, and fosters an emotional tie characterized by a powerful emotional relationship. The early experiences of maternal bonding might impact the infant's general development by bringing emotional tools and social competence, and will serve as responses for later relationships. That is why it is essential to secure the early internal working models of attachment representations and develop emotional intelligence and regulation in early stages. Mothers give unconsciously emotional guidance for the infants and facilitate the development of emotional tools for identifying their own feelings. The basis of the infant's emotional regulation has its basis on the nonverbal communication, such as facial response, vocalizations, touch, eye contact, and mirroring of all these elements. However, there is the evidence that maternal sensitivity and the mother's emotional state are an important element for meeting the infant's needs and for securing attachment. According to May Ainsworth, attachment can be categorized by behaviors such as secure, avoidant, ambivalent, and disorganized. Based on the behaviors and the behavioral synchrony during mother-infant interaction, the attachment style can be examined and observed. This is known as the strange situation test by May Ainsworth and is a second referential attachment theory. Now let's move on to the music research evidence. The uses of music in everyday life, either producing it or listening to it, are ubiquitous elements in individuals' lives. It is known that music responses are influenced by the context, the music itself, and the listener or producer, and helps to shape different psychological aspects and fulfills emotional needs in an individual and social level. Music and musical behaviors have been proven as tools for groups of people to bond. We make them essential for developing social interactions, communicating values and opinions to others. But what does music research has to say about mothers and babies? There is an extensive literature focused on music and infants' music response. Studies have assessed the impact on the communication between mothers and infants. This conversational communication made by mothers as infant-directed speech and maternal singing serve as tools for enhancing infants' attention and showing positive affection and mother sensitivity. Furthermore, studies have suggested that the expressiveness of mother vocalizations can be associated with the affective and emotional communication between mother and infant, and therefore with attachment style developed. These findings suggest that the expressiveness of maternal vocalizations is affected by the quality of a maternal attachment and underlies the infant's emotional response and regulation. Based on the previous background and important gaps in research, such as the study of maternal vocalizations using either lullabies or infant songs, leaves aside the well-known power of self-selected music for mood regulation and shared preferences for building social interrelationships. Moreover, music research is mainly focused on the infant's musical response, leaving aside the influence of the mother's everyday life and how motherhood can be a source of stress and therefore affects the mother's emotional state. Thus, the study of the interaction between mothers and infants needs to be considered also in the direction of the mother towards the infant, paying attention to the mother's emotional state during everyday life. The PRISM project addressed this gap and explored the mother's self-selected uses of music and how this can help to enhance and facilitate maternal bonding. The project was designed considering a main element: the sensitive nature of analyzing and exploring human interactions and its participants in a naturalistic setting. Therefore, it considered an entirely exploratory study based on a quasi-experiment of a 2-week trial, with a mixed subjects design considering quantitative and qualitative approaches. As stated in the overview, we will continue to describe the methodology of the project. The participants' general characteristics were mothers with their infants between 4 to 8 months old. Mothers and infants' exclusionary criteria included diagnosed mental disorders and chronic diseases. Due to time constraints, we were only able to recruit 8 mothers with their babies through different Facebook groups. All women had a higher education degree and were either married or in a civil partnership. 75% were employed, from which 50% were working part-time at the time of the study, and 25% were on maternity leave. Based on the aims and research design, we included 5 main methods of data collection, from which are included 1 background questionnaire with 2 sections, the general information and general uses of music, including how confident they feel when singing to their infants. As measurement scales, we included the parental stress scale by Berry and Jones, which measures the parent's perceived stress and considers positive and negative aspects of the parenthood. And we also included the maternal postnatal attachment scale by Corden and Corkindale. The ISMs are divided over 3 subscales, which encompass the confidence and assessment of mothers' subjective feelings towards their infants, which are quality of attachment, absence of hostility, and pleasure of interactions. Participants were asked to keep 2 different online diaries for 7 consecutive days each. The study considered a semi-structured diary methodology for getting a greater insight into mothers' everyday life. Based on previous research on behavioral maternal interactions, 2 interaction videos of 15 minutes were also recorded. And as the last method, we included a follow-up semi-structured interview of 15 minutes. The guideline was designed to cover general experiences of the study, mother's perspective on the assigned condition, and experiences of motherhood. Interested participants received the background questionnaire, from which participants were selected. The MAPS and PSS were measured before the first week. The first week was considered a regular week for participants, where no conditions were assigned. During this week, participants kept the first diary. After the first week, the first video interaction was recorded and measures were taken a second time. In week 2, participants were assigned to the conditions based on the regular uses of music and their confidence to sing, maternal singing or music listening. During this week, participants kept the second diary, considering the condition assigned, and were encouraged to use their own selection of music. The second interaction video was recorded at the end of the second week, considering the condition assigned. At this point, it was also measured for the last time the MPAS and PSS, finalizing the trial with the follow-up interview. Based on the research design, we followed 2 approaches, qualitative and quantitative. The quantitative analysis considered the difference between the scores over time. For the PSS and MPAS, plus the 3 subscales of it, it considered the 3 times of measures taken during the trial. For the interaction videos, we considered the difference between time 1 and 2 of the behavioral descriptors. It was considered a 15 to 20 seconds interaction episodes edited with a 10 seconds time base. We consider 3 main behavioral descriptors: face-to-face interactions and 2 3-step interactions. All the different behavioral descriptors were marked and rated from 1 to 5 according to the synchronous occurrences. We conducted a total of 8 one-way ANOVAs in order to compare the difference between the condition groups under the variables, from which the main results are a significant difference mean in PSS and face-to-face interactions. We carried out independent sample t-tests and per-sample t-tests to explore whether there was a statistically significant mean difference between the variables under the condition groups and between week 1 and week 2, respectively. From parental stress, participants experienced more parental stress during week 1 than week 2. And during week 2, participants perceived more parental stress under the listening conditioning than the singing condition. Participants under the listening condition experience a better quality of face-to-face interactions than in the singing condition. As for the qualitative analysis, the code considers elements about general aspects of motherhood and of music in everyday life. However, the diary of week 2 considered also the effect of the condition, and the follow-up interview considered also the research experiences and exploration of the uses of music as streaming services. The main result of this approach suggests that mothers found as positive experience the use of their own selection of music, and were surprised about the infant's positive response to that music. They found it helps them to cope easier with stressful situations and to regulate their own emotions, which help them to feel more connected with their infant. However, what they highlighted is that listening to their own music made them feel like a woman one more time instead of just being mothers. Putting together both approaches, we observed that the mother's musical response to their own selection of music helped to cope better with stressful situations and were able to regulate more effectively their own emotions, which promotes the general sense of well-being. This brings for consequence better quality of mother-infant interactions, facilitating maternal bonding and having an effect on infants' early experiences. We also observed that mother's musical response creates a cycle. The mother's musical response influences the infant's musical response by the use of communicative musicality between them both. The communicative musicality refers to the synchronous occurrences of music-like parameters which are essential for communicating love and companionship between mother and infant. Based on our findings, we consider pertinent to keep exploring this in further depth, considering other forms of interaction in which infants take place, like father-infant interactions, or explore the effect of parent self-selected music for facilitating family bonding, and even if the societal factors or gender role might have an influence. These are the references used for these presentations. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening.